In this video, I'm going to share with you the baffling reason why psychiatry still doesn't have an accurate picture of mental health, let alone how to treat it. But before we begin, I want to provide you with some context. In 2006, I was living a fairly ordinary life, free of complications, until I experienced heartbreak for the first time. This one experience would open a chasm within my heart so deep that I felt that it would swallow a black hole entirely. It would take another 4 years until I would genuinely smile again. And I did not seek any help because, coming from a third world country, I had never heard of depression, let alone think that there could be something wrong with me. It would cost me everything to search deep within my soul to find the overwhelming will to survive. 10 years later, I would write about this while living inside a secluded cave, and the first chapter of my book would document this part of my journey. And the book itself is called Hidden World, the Inside Story of the Soul. Even if we don't talk about it, we know that everyone suffers at some point in their life. Why then do some people recover from setbacks as if nothing happened, while others do not? Depression is not your fault. Not because there is something wrong with your brain, but rather you did not have access to the right information. This is a big difference. I did not have access to neuroscience information when I needed it. In fact, I had no idea about neuroscience or psychiatry or mental health. Back then, I was studying animal behavior to become a zoologist. But ironically, not knowing anything about depression was my greatest advantage, because now more than ever, we have too many solutions that are either too hard or too confusing. The paradox of choice can itself lead to a sense of hopelessness and exacerbate depression. Adding to the confusion is that science conveniently ignores the toxic side effects of antidepressants. And this is because it was never about the patient, but rather making money off the medication. And this is why we have so many false hypotheses out there, such as the chemical imbalance theory and inconclusive biomarker research. How do I know? It's because I did my PhD thesis on this. Now you may be thinking, yes, I've tried therapy, I've tried positive thinking, I've tried exercise and various supplements. And none of these well-being practices has worked for me. What has worked has been antidepressants, and it's finally been able to lift my state out of crisis so that I'm able to function normally. So let's have a look at why people resort to antidepressants as their way out. Let's begin with improving mood. Well-being practices does require a learning curve for a shift to take place. While for medication, all you have to do is swallow a pill. So this one I will give to medication. When we look at ease and effort of use, well-being practices does require daily motivation, while for medication, all you need to do is swallow a pill. So once again, this goes to medication. When we look at the amount of sacrifice you have to make, well-being practice does take time away from family and work commitments, while for medication, swallow a pill. So once again, this goes to medication. When we look at the time delay, we find that well-being practices does require a dedicated period of time to take effect, while for medication, it's about 15 minutes. So this one goes to medication. Now let's have a look at the safety requirements. So in the well-being practices, the more you do it, the effects start to compound and it's long-lasting. While for medication, it is very unstable and we find that it can lead to long-term side effects and secondary complications. So this one I will give to the well-being practices. And finally, when we look at cost, most well-being practices can be available for free, while for medication, it's about $45 per month if you have insurance, or $130 per month if you are without insurance. So this one goes to the well-being practices. If you are thinking that your goal is to eventually reach a point where you can get off medication and function normally without them, I do have some news for you. Medication and therapy can only make you feel moderately better, because the hard truth is that your mind was never the problem. I won't go into the details as to why selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors or SSRIs do more harm to the brain than good, because this may demonetize my channel, but I do show you why in my masterclass, which you'll find in the description below. I've worked with hundreds of clients over the years, and they've come to me because they've realized this hard truth. And not only did they get access to the right information in recovery framework, but some of them who've been on medication for well over 10 years felt safe enough to withdraw from medication on their own accord without relapse. Depression itself isn't a fallacy, but how we treat it is. Depression exists when the brain is unable to cope with the weight of chronic stress, and then the bottomless pit of pain appears. Wellbeing practices aim to take us away from stress and pain. However, in doing so, it results in us being intolerant of stress in this modern world and unable to do what is required to function in this fast-paced reality. What we fail to realize is at the core of every human being is suffering. The need for more money, the need to be loved, the need for a car, a house, and even a vacation. The economy is built on solving people's pain. For example, the desire to be loved is met by the beauty industry, the fashion industry, the health industry, and now even surgery. In reality, people equate being loved to their pain going away. However, no one bothered to address where this pain was coming from because they forgot to look within themselves. So it is no coincidence that psychiatry has no concept of love, intuition, or the human soul. Instead, psychiatry simply bolts on esoteric practices and rebrands this as mindfulness. In the inception of psychiatry, Sigmund Freud deliberately communicated to Carl Jung to exclude all elements of mysticism to manufacture psychotherapy as a legitimate science. Psychiatry came to heavily rely on brute force statistics. Yet no other medical field does this, whether it be heart research, cancer, or even neurology. Mental illnesses, however, are diagnosed through the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, and the current iteration of it is DSM-5, which has been periodically updated since 1994. This is why psychiatry claims a chemical imbalance, but this is never diagnosed. Instead, they rely on the DSM-5 to overcompensate for the lack of truth. My intention isn't to dismiss suffering, but rather to provide you with perspective so that you don't get lost in the plethora of treatment options. I want you to come up with your own decision, because there is no possibility of recovery when you're looking everywhere other than the uncomfortable truth. You can learn more about what the medical industry does not want you to know about the brain in this video linked here.